At 16, my mom branded me a mistake and threw me out. I found refuge with Grandpa, exposed lies, watched my dad get arrested, and finally took back our home. What started as a typical my sister gets everything story turned into something way darker, and honestly a little satisfying. Buckle up, because this one's not your usual family drama. If you ever want to see what favoritism looks like in its purest form, meet my family. I'm Felix. I was 16 when it really hit me that I wasn't the son. I was the designated punching bag. My sister Ashley, 2 years older, was the golden child. She could set the kitchen on fire, and my parents would find a way to blame me for leaving the matches out. I stopped trying to argue about it years ago. Everything that wasn't about me just turned into "don't lie, Felix." So I started keeping score, not in a journal or anything dramatic, just in my head. Every time she screwed up and I took the fall, I mentally ticked another point on her side of the scoreboard. Spoiler, she was undefeated. The best example? The car incident. That one's burned into my brain. Ashley had just gotten her learner's permit, which in her mind automatically made her a NASCAR driver. One afternoon, while my parents were out, she decided to practice. I was in my room playing guitar when I heard the engine outside rev like a lawnmower on steroids. Then came the crash, loud enough to shake the windows. I ran outside to find our parents' car halfway through the front window of Mrs. Geller's boutique. Ashley was sitting behind the wheel crying, saying it just slipped, like the car jumped into drive on its own. I knew right then I was screwed. When Mom and Dad came home, I expected shouting, at least at her, but no. Mom hugged Ashley like she'd just survived a tornado. Dad looked at the wreck and said, "How could you let your sister do this, Felix? That's right. Somehow it was my fault for not stopping her." They called Mrs. Geller to apologize and promised to cover the damages. The next day, they told me I'd be helping pay for it. My allowance, already a joke compared to Ashley's, got cut off completely. Dad even sold my guitar to teach me responsibility. That guitar was the only thing I'd ever saved up for myself. Months of mowing lawns and fixing neighbors' Wi-Fi, gone in a heartbeat because my sister thought parking lots were optional. Ashley didn't get grounded, not even for a week. She got sympathy, ice cream, and a drive safer next time talk. I got to watch them praise her for learning from her mistakes. I'd love to say that was the worst of it, but that was just another Tuesday in our house. Every little thing, missing money, broken phone chargers, arguments, somehow circled back to me. I was the lazy one, the ungrateful one, the problem child. Mom would throw those words around like confetti, and Dad would nod along like a trained parrot. After a while, I stopped reacting. I'd just nod, clean whatever they told me to, and save my energy. I figured maybe if I stayed quiet long enough, they'd find someone else to blame, but they never did. The night everything changed was a few days before my 17th birthday. I was lying in bed scrolling on my phone, pretending not to hear Ashley bragging in the next room about how she was finally getting her own bigger space soon. I thought it was just her usual bragging until I heard my door creak open. Mom's voice whispered, "He's asleep." The door clicked shut, and I heard footsteps heading down the hallway. Normally I'd ignore it, but then I caught a snippet of the conversation. Ashley's voice, "I want him gone." I froze. My dad didn't even hesitate. "Then tell him to leave. We'll back you up." My stomach dropped. They didn't argue. They didn't ask what I'd done. They just agreed. Then my mom laughed. Actually laughed. And said, "Your room's finally going to be bigger. We can knock the wall down and connect it." I stared at the ceiling for hours that night, not mad, just done. I wasn't going to beg to stay somewhere I was never wanted. If they wanted me gone, fine. But they were going to find out what happens when the useless one finally stops caring. The next time they blamed me for something I didn't do, it would be the last time. Turns out that next time came a lot sooner than I thought. I woke up the following morning to the sound of Ashley humming. That fake cheerful tone she used when she was about to do something petty. I got dressed, grabbed my backpack, and walked out to the living room. She was sitting there scrolling on her phone with a smirk, toast in hand, like she'd been waiting for me. "Morning," I said flatly. She smiled without looking up. "You should start packing." I blinked. "What?" She set her phone down like a lawyer about to win a case. "We decided it's time for you to leave." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe she actually said it out loud. "You decided?" Dad was at the table drinking coffee like this was a perfectly normal family breakfast. Mom was next to him, phone in hand, thumbs flying. Neither of them looked at me. "You heard your sister," Dad said, still not making eye contact. "It's for the best." "For who?" I asked. Mom finally looked up. Her tone was flat, cold. "You were a mistake anyway, so why waste a room on you?" That one hit harder than anything else she'd ever said, not because it was loud or emotional, but because it was casual, like she was reading the weather. I didn't argue. What was the point? They'd already made up their minds. I just stared at her for a second, waiting for some sign this was a joke. There wasn't one. She went back to her phone. Ashley was grinning like she'd just won a prize. I went to my room and shut the door. My hands were shaking, but my head was clear. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. I packed quietly. At the front door, I hesitated for a second. I half expected someone to say, "Don't go too far or we'll talk later." Nothing. When the door closed behind me, I heard Dad lock it. That was the moment it really hit me. I wasn't coming back. I walked down the street trying to figure out what to do next. I had no car, no job, and nowhere to stay. The only people who might not slam the door in my face were my grandparents. I pulled out my phone, ordered a ride, and stood on the curb with my backpack at my feet. The driver dropped me off at the corner of my grandparents' street. I paid him, thanked him, and stood there for a minute staring at their house. It looked exactly the same as always, but standing there felt strange. I hadn't visited much lately. Mom always said Grandma was too soft and Grandpa too judgmental, which was rich coming from her. I walked up the steps and raised my hand to knock, but hesitated. What if they didn't want me either? What if they called my parents? Before I could talk myself out of it, I knocked twice. A few seconds passed. Then the door opened and Grandma stood there in her robe, hair messy, eyes wide. "Felix," she said, like she couldn't believe it. I tried to speak, but my throat locked up. She took one look at the backpack and the expression on my face and didn't ask another question. She just opened the door wider. "Come in, honey!" I stepped inside. "What happened?" she asked quietly. "They kicked me out," I said. My voice cracked despite trying to sound like it didn't matter. Her face went pale. "They what?" I shrugged, said I'm useless, didn't want to waste a room. For a second, she didn't move. Then she pulled me into a hug so tight it almost hurt. "You're staying here," she said. "End of story." That was the first time in years someone said something about me that actually made sense. While I stood there trying to decide whether to cry or laugh, I realized I wasn't lost. I'd been erased, sure, but maybe that wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. Sometimes when people throw you out, they forget they just set you free. That thought stuck with me as I sat at Grandma's kitchen table that night, hands wrapped around a mug of hot tea I didn't even remember accepting. Grandma sat across from me, still in her robe, staring like she couldn't process what I'd told her. "They really kicked you out?" she asked again. I nodded. "Yeah, told me I'm useless. Ashley wanted my room." Her face hardened in a way I'd never seen before. Grandma was the kind of woman who'd bake cookies for the mailman, but right then she looked ready to march over there with a frying pan. Before she could speak, a deep voice came from the hallway. "What's going on here?" Grandpa stepped in wearing his usual flannel shirt and that look that could silence a room. He never had to raise his voice. One glance and you'd rethink every life choice. I swallowed hard. "Mom and Dad kicked me out." He didn't blink. "Why?" "Because Ashley wanted my room." He stood there for a moment, staring at me like he was waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, he let out a slow, disappointed breath. "Figures." Grandma jumped in, voice trembling with anger, and told him everything. The lies, the favoritism, all of it. I didn't say much, she covered it perfectly. Grandpa sat down, quiet at first, just tapping his fingers on the table. "You know," he said finally, "I've been paying their bills for years. Electric, property tax, everything." I looked up, confused. "You what?" He nodded. "They've been struggling since day one. Your father's pride wouldn't let him admit it, so I helped. Figured it was temporary. Guess I was wrong." Grandma folded her arms. "He bought them that house when they got married," she said, voice full of disgust. My head snapped toward her. "Wait, you bought it?" Grandpa nodded again, slow and deliberate. "Every brick. They didn't lift a finger. I gave them a start in life, but I kept it in my name, and they repay me by throwing out my grandson." He leaned back, eyes narrowing. I always knew something was off with those two. The way they talk about money, the way they spoil that girl like she's royalty. He turned to me. "You've been catching the blame for years, haven't you?" I didn't need to answer. He saw it on my face. He rubbed his chin. "I kept telling your father I didn't raise him to act this way, but he's been hiding behind that wife of his for too long. She's got him thinking cruelty makes him a man." Grandma shook her head. "And Ashley's the same. She learned early that if she cries loud enough, someone else takes the hit. Grandpa's jaw tightened. That ends now. He got up, walked to the counter, and started digging through the drawer where he kept important papers. After a moment, he pulled out a small folded piece of paper and slid it across the table to me. Alonzo, he said. He's a friend, lawyer, handles my business. Call him in the morning. Tell him who you are and what happened. I frowned. What's he going to do? Grandpa looked at me like it was the dumbest question he'd ever heard. He's going to fix it. Grandma frowned. Fix it how? He smirked. By reminding them whose name is on that property deed. I stared at the paper. I didn't fully understand yet, but the way Grandpa said it made me believe it was something big. He sat back down and took a long sip of coffee. They've been living under my roof, they just forgot it. Time for a wake-up call. For the first time that night, I cracked a smile. You're really going to kick them out? He shrugged. Seems fair, doesn't it? They wanted you gone. Let's see how they like it. Grandma sighed, half amused, half worried. Frank. He waved a hand. Don't start, Linda. I'm done watching them treat this kid like garbage while living off my money. If they want independence, they're about to get a crash course. He turned to me. Get some rest. You did nothing wrong. Tomorrow you make that call, then you let me handle the rest. Something about the way he said it made me feel like I was finally part of a team, not the outcast, not the problem, just someone who had backup. I nodded. Thanks, Grandpa. He gave a short grunt, his version of, You're welcome. Grandma told me to take the guest room. The bed was softer than I remembered. The sheets smelled like lavender. As I lay there staring at the ceiling, my brain tried to process everything. My parents didn't own the house. Grandpa had been paying their bills, and he was actually planning to do something about it. My parents were about to learn that the kid they threw out wasn't as powerless as they thought, and with a man like my grandpa on my side, they didn't stand a chance. I woke up to the smell of bacon and the sound of Grandpa flipping pancakes like it was just another Tuesday. I sat down at the table. He didn't even look up from the stove. You call Alonzo yet? He asked. Not yet. He turned slightly, one eyebrow raised. Well, what are you waiting for? A written invitation? I smirked, grabbed my phone and pulled out the folded paper he'd given me last night. The number was written in Grandpa's sharp, blocky handwriting. I dialed. It rang twice before a deep voice answered. Alonzo speaking. Hi. My name's Felix. My grandfather told me to call you Frank Morales. The tone on the other end instantly warmed. Ah, Frank's grandson. I've heard about you. He said you'd be calling. Go ahead. Tell me what happened. So I did. Every detail from Ashley's lies to the night they kicked me out. I could hear Alonzo muttering under his breath a few times, probably fighting the urge to curse. When I finished, there was a short pause. Then, all right, kid. First off, that house? It's not theirs. Legally, your grandfather owns it outright. No shared title, no lease, nothing. If he wants them gone, he can make it happen. I blinked. You're serious? Completely. I'll handle the paperwork today. He just needs to call and confirm. I thanked him, hung up, and looked at Grandpa. You weren't kidding. You actually own it. He sat down with his coffee, deadpan. I don't joke about money or idiots. Grandma frowned from across the kitchen. Frank, don't sound so pleased. I'm not pleased, he said. I'm efficient. He picked up his phone, scrolled for a second, put it on speaker, and said, Time for a family meeting. I didn't know what to expect. Yelling, denial, fake apologies. What I got was chaos within 10 seconds. Dad? My father's voice sounded half confused, half annoyed. What's this about? Grandpa's tone was calm, like he was reading a grocery list. It's time for you to pack your things and leave the house. Silence. Then laughter. My mom's voice chimed in, high-pitched and defensive. You can't be serious. Dead serious, Grandpa said, taking a sip of coffee. You forgot whose name is on the deed. Let me remind you. It's mine, my dad stammered. You can't just kick us out. We've lived here for years. And I paid for every one of those years, Grandpa replied. The house, the bills, the taxes. You've been tenants without rent. Consider this your eviction notice. In the background, Ashley started losing it. This is ridiculous. He's lying. Grandpa actually chuckled. Still running your mouth, huh? You sound just like your mother when she's cornered. Dad, please, Mom cut in. You're overreacting, Grandpa said. It was just what? Grandpa snapped. Throwing my grandson on the street? You want to call that a misunderstanding? Fine, call the cops. Tell them the old man you've been mooching off for years is being unfair. The silence that followed was glorious. I couldn't help but grin. Finally, Dad muttered, "You don't mean this." Grandpa gave a short, humorless laugh. "You said the same thing when I told you not to marry that woman. You didn't listen then either." "Frank," Mom hissed. "I just did," Grandpa said, and hung up. The room was quiet for a full 10 seconds. Then Grandma exhaled slowly. "Frank, you really did it." "Damn right I did." I couldn't stop smiling. For once in my life, someone had actually stood up for me, and not just anyone, but Grandpa, and he did it like an absolute boss. No yelling, no drama, just precision strikes. Grandma walked over and hugged me from behind. "They made their bed," she said softly. "Now they'll lie in it." A few hours later, Grandpa came back from Alonzo's office whistling and tossed a folder on the counter. "All done. Notice is official. They'll get the call before dinner." Right on cue, the phone rang around 6 o'clock. Grandpa put it on speaker. My dad, panicked, shaky, voice cracking. "Dad, what's going on? We got this letter." "Your time is done," Grandpa said flatly. "Dad, come on." Click. Grandma covered her mouth, half shocked, half impressed. "You really don't play, do you?" Grandpa smirked and turned to me. "They wanted you gone, kid. Now it's their turn." He wasn't kidding. 2 days later, all three of them showed up pretending to be calm, like they were there to talk things out. I saw them pull up from the window, Dad in his button-up trying to look authoritative, Mom clinging to his arm, Ashley behind them with that smug "I always get what I want" face. "Showtime," Grandpa muttered, setting his coffee down and heading for the door. He opened it before they could knock. "You've got 5 minutes," he said. Mom instantly put on her sad face. "Dad, please, we just want to talk." "You're talking. Make it quick." They filed in like they still owned the place. I stayed by the kitchen counter, arms crossed. Grandma stood beside me, watching. Dad cleared his throat. "Dad, this has gotten out of hand. Felix has clearly manipulated you. He's twisted everything to make us look bad." I raised an eyebrow. "Manipulated?" "Yeah, okay." He ignored me. He's a teenager, rebellious. He's been disrespectful for years. That's why he left. No one kicked him out. He stormed off. I laughed, sharp and humorless. "You locked the door behind me." Mom jumped in. "He's exaggerating. You know how dramatic kids can be. He's just angry because we held him accountable." "Accountable for what?" Grandpa asked, voice ice cold. Mom hesitated. "For all the lies he's told about us." Ashley finally spoke, voice dripping fake confidence. "He's jealous, Grandpa. I've always worked hard and he hates that you see me as successful." "Successful?" I said. "You crashed a car into a store." Her face went pale. Grandpa's eyes narrowed. "What car?" The room went dead quiet. Grandma stepped forward. "Frank, remember my friend Teresa, the one who owns the boutique on 4th Street? Grandpa nodded slowly. "She's the one Ashley crashed into," Grandma said, glaring at my parents. "Teresa told me the whole story, how you promised to pay and said Ashley was learning from her mistakes. Only Teresa never saw Ashley again after you paid in cash." Mom's mouth dropped open. That's not—" "Oh, it's true," Grandma cut in, "and Felix was the one who actually paid for it." Grandma's head snapped toward me. "You what?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "They cut my allowance, sold my guitar, and made me hand over every bit of cash I'd saved. Told me it was my fault for not stopping her." The whole room froze. Grandpa stared at my parents, expression unreadable. Then his voice cut through the silence like a blade. "You made this boy pay for her mistake?" Dad raised his hands. "It wasn't like that." "Sounds exactly like that," Grandpa snapped. "You let that girl run wild and punish the one kid who actually had a conscience." Ashley huffed. "This is ridiculous. You're all taking his side because he plays victim." "Victim?" I said. "You've been stealing my stuff since we were kids and blaming me for everything you broke." Grandpa's eyes shifted to Ashley, calm but sharp enough to make her flinch. "Careful how you talk in my house, young lady. I've tolerated enough of your mouth." Dad stepped forward. "Look, Dad, you're being manipulated." "Don't," Grandpa said, standing. "You've lied, mooched, and twisted everything you could to stay comfortable. You used my money, my house, and my patience. That ends right now." Mom's fake calm cracked. You can't just throw us out. Where are we supposed to go? Not my problem, Grandpa replied. You had no issue throwing your own son out with nowhere to go, remember? You have 1 month, he continued. After that, I call the police. And don't think I won't. I have every legal right. Dad started, You wouldn't. But Grandpa just looked at him, and the sentence died. Grandma stepped forward, voice softer but firm. You both should be ashamed. I watched that boy grow up trying to earn your approval while you tore him down. And Ashley, you're not special, sweetheart. You're just used to never facing consequences. Ashley opened her mouth. Grandma raised a hand. Not another word. Mom tugged Dad's sleeve. Let's go, she whispered. They backed out slowly, like people leaving a courtroom after losing badly. Ashley glared at me on her way out. You'll regret this. Doubt it, I said. Grandpa shut and locked the door behind them. The silence afterward felt heavy but good, like fresh air after years in a smoke-filled room. Grandma turned to me, face softening. You did good, Felix. You told the truth. Grandpa looked at me, pride hidden behind his usual tough exterior. They think lying is a game. Let's see how they handle losing. That night, I didn't just feel safe, I felt seen. But I should have known my parents wouldn't go down quietly. The next morning, Grandpa was trimming hedges. Grandma was baking, and I was helping set the table when the phone rang. Grandma answered. Her face shifted from confusion to irritation. What do you mean, missing? She said. Grandpa raised an eyebrow. She covered the receiver. It's the police. Your parents reported you missing. Turns out they'd filed the report days earlier, before showing up pretending everything was fine, hoping it would make them look innocent. Grandpa took the phone. This is Frank Morales. You're telling me my grandson, who's been eating pancakes at my table for 3 days, is missing? His tone dropped. My son and his wife kicked this boy out. He came here on his own. Close your file before you embarrass yourselves further. He hung up. Desperate people do stupid things, he muttered. That night, everything went from peaceful to chaos. Close to midnight, I heard a soft click downstairs, then slow, deliberate footsteps. I slipped out of bed. Grandpa was already up, small pistol in hand, eyes sharp. Stay behind me, he whispered. We moved down the hallway. Then we saw him, my dad, halfway up the stairs. Don't move, Grandpa said, voice steady. Dad froze. Dad, it's me. I just came to talk, through the back door. You break into my house at midnight and you want to talk? Grandpa asked. Mom's voice floated up from downstairs. Please, Dad, we just need to explain. Explain how you lied to the police? Grandpa snapped. You're lucky I'm not calling them right now. Dad raised his hands. Let's calm down. You have 10 seconds to get out. Dad took one step down, pretending to comply. Grandpa lowered the gun slightly. The second Grandpa turned to check on Grandma. Dad lunged, shoving hard. Grandpa! I shouted. Grandpa stumbled, foot slipping on the edge of the stair. I grabbed Dad's shoulder and yanked him back, slamming him against the wall. Grandma came running, saw what was happening, and started dialing 911. My son just tried to push. My husband down the stairs. Dad froze. Grandpa straightened, gripping the railing, face broken. My own son, he muttered. You really would have let me fall. Sirens filled the air minutes later. The officers watched the security camera footage on Grandpa's phone. Dad kept insisting it was an accident. The video showed otherwise. Clear as day, hands shooting forward the moment Grandpa looked away. They handcuffed him. As they let him out, Grandpa didn't say a word until the door shut. Then he sank into his chair. I raised that man, he said quietly. Worked 2 jobs to give him everything, and this is what he does. Grandma put a hand on his shoulder. He made his choices. Dad spent the night in jail facing charges for trespassing and attempted assault. Mom called 2 days later crying, begging Grandpa to drop it. He didn't. Within a month, they were evicted. They ended up in a tiny apartment across town. Ashley posted about downsizing for personal growth. Sure. Grandpa updated his will. One afternoon, he sat me down and slid the papers across the table. The house, the land, the savings, all yours when we're gone. I blinked. What? You earned it, he said simply. You didn't quit on yourself even when they tried to break you. Grandma smiled from the counter. You've brought peace back into this house, Felix. A few months later, on a quiet evening, Grandpa handed me a set of keys. You belong here, kid, he said. This is your home now. I looked at the keys. Silver, heavy, real, and felt something I hadn't felt in years, calm. Grandma brought out tea. You look like a man who finally exhaled. Yeah, I laughed softly. Feels weird. Grandpa chuckled. Peace always does. You spend so long fighting for it, you forget how to live in it. He was right. After a lifetime of chaos, quiet felt strange, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. For once, I wasn't the kid trying to survive his family. I was the man building a new one.